Walking down a busy city street, you are surrounded by thousands of people who are, biologically speaking, the exact same make and model as you. This biological monoculture is a recent development. For most of our history, hominids were just one character in a crowded cast of human-like species. 2 million years ago, the African landscape was dominated by massive scimitar-toothed cats and giant straight-tusked elephants. Our early ancestors, like Homo habilis, survived by hiding in the tree canopy. On the savanna floor, these early hominids faced a biological gauntlet, where every step away from the trees carried the threat of almost certain death. Then, the environment fractured. Geological activity in the African Rift Valley created physical barriers that isolated a small pocket of hominids from the main population. In this dry, resource-scarce environment, natural selection accelerated. Biologists call this allopatric speciation, where intense environmental stress forces rapid evolutionary change. Short legs and tree climbing adaptations were phased out in favor of longer limbs and a fluid, upright stride. This pressure cooker produced Homo erectus. Forged by these specific environmental demands, this population emerged as the first hominid built specifically to conquer the horizon. Their facial architecture was built for impact, featuring a solid bone visor over the eyes and an aggressively sloping forehead. But their most significant adaptation was the projecting nose. Constant exposure to dry air can damage lung tissue. By extending the nasal cavity, they created an internal chamber that humidifies air on the inhale and traps vital moisture on the exhale. This facial engineering broke their dependence on humid jungles, allowing them to cross arid savannas and eventually push out of Africa entirely. As they expanded, the species traded the safety of fast physical growth for a long, vulnerable childhood. This kept the brain plastic, allowing it to learn complex social rules and behaviors. This capacity for learning enabled the active creation of fire. By striking iron pyrite against stone, they could produce sparks on demand. Controlled fire provided a force field against predators and the microclimate required to migrate into freezing environments like ancient Germany. Controlled fire also allowed them to cook. Heating meat and tubers pre-digests the food, gelatinizing starches and making proteins easier to absorb. This chart shows how cooking provided a massive caloric surplus. The body spent less energy on digestion and routed that surplus to fund the high energy demands of a growing brain. Fire was the external technology that covered the biological cost of human intelligence. This intelligence is evident in the Acheulean hand axe. Crafting this symmetrical edge required the maker to visualize the final tool within a raw lump of stone. Using these axes alongside projectile bolas, they shifted from scavengers to predators capable of hunting 4-ton rhinos and elephants. Hunting megafauna requires strict coordination. The human-like shape of the hyoid bone found in Homo erectus specimens suggests they possessed the mechanical hardware for an articulate proto-language. Their cognitive development included the construction of physical dwellings and the use of red ochre pigments, the earliest evidence of abstract social identity. Through fire, tools, and social coordination, the prey had become the undisputed apex predator of the planet. Their global empire lasted for roughly 2 million years, a span of time that dwarfs the 300,000-year history of modern humans. But their reign eventually met a drastically shifting climate. Across Southeast Asia, vast open savannas were completely swallowed by dense rainforest. Their bodies and strategies were engineered for long-distance running and clear sightlines. In a tangled jungle canopy, these strengths were no longer an advantage. The environmental specialization that enabled their expansion ultimately evicted them when the global climate changed. Their lineage continued through isolated populations that evolved into new subspecies, such as the Neanderthals in the north and the smaller hominids on the island of Flores. Back in Africa, these isolated populations continued to adapt, eventually refining their biology into the current human operating system, Homo sapiens. Today, every single time we use a blade or cook a meal, we are utilizing the technological foundations they pioneered. Homo erectus was without question the ultimate master of adaptation for their era, yet they eventually hit a biological wall. If our own environment shifts as drastically as theirs did, Will our species last even a fraction of their 2 million-year dynasty?